first, I want to congratulate you with the release of your new album. The previous one was, I think, from 2019, if I remember correctly. Can you take me through the years? Because obviously we had some pandemic between it, but what else was there?
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So yes, the last album was at the end of 2019, and as you said, there was a pandemic pretty soon after that, and it kind of hindered our process or our promotion of that album a little bit. Basically, we started to confirm gigs, started to confirm concerts and stuff like that, and that all basically came to an end with the pandemic. And also, the pandemic hit us some of us pretty hard on the personal level. So that was basically the reason we had to pause. Not really pause. We still did rehearsals and stuff like that, but it was really slow, and it kind of slowed down the entire process. And after the pandemic lifted, basically after the restrictions were lifted and things went back to normal, we didn't really want to spend like a year or two making a full-length album and just stay in this kind of awkward stage where we didn't really have things to promote live, new things to promote. So we did some singles. We just basically put out everything that we worked on during the pandemic, and after that put it out right when it was finished. So we did like 5 songs, I think, in the last 2 years or something like that. Some of those were quite experimental. We, for example, did a cover of a pop song, the Believer song, and we did one song in Czech, which was something that we haven't done before because we were always singing in English. And some of it was kind of successful, some of it not so much, but it really showed us that this isn't the right way for us to do it, because working on a single song is very different from working on a full-length album. So we kind of scratched that and started working on Unconcealed Atrocities, which is the album that came out now.
Yeah. And how was your approach when you recorded the album then?
Sorry?
How was your approach when you?
Well, it was quite different from the last one, because the last one was kind of a standard stuff. Sounded very similar to other things that came out in that time. We wanted something a little bit more different this time around, so we contacted a studio that we did some of the singles before. We did 2 of the singles were live recordings where we didn't record like each instrument separately, and we did everything together. And we really like their approach because they are a studio that doesn't really do metal music, and that brought us some fresh perspectives to the whole process. So we did it there, and I think that it came out really well because it doesn't really sound like everything else. It has its own identity. So that was the thing that was really different from what we did with the previous album.
All right. So, what do you? How do you would you describe that sound right now?
Well, it's very raw. It's probably the best word to describe it. It's different in a way. Not maybe maybe it's going to be a little bit off-putting to some people. Like the drums are very, very dry. It's not triggered in any way. There are no like samples over the drums, so it's really the raw sound of the drums, which brings out a lot of the dynamics of the drums, which is not something that is very common in this genre. We also did live strings, which is also a really big step up from the last album, which there were live strings as well, but just a little bit like in the background. But most of the symphonic sounds and stuff like that were done with audio libraries. And this time around, we worked with a cellist and a violinist who laid down their parts. The violinist did violin also. and we kind of layered it together. The original plan was to blend it with some samples, but the result was so good for us that we ditched the samples entirely, and we just left the live recordings. Also, there's live piano. I provided the piano tracks. So we recorded live piano in the studio. They had one there. So there's very, very little like electronic sounds or samples used on this album. Almost everything you hear there is really genuine, which was kind of new for us, because in the past we used a lot of libraries and stuff like that. So this was a really new approach for us.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, let's look a little bit at a couple of the songs of the album, so people get a bit of a background on them. And let's start with the first. I think it was the first single, but I'm not going to pronounce that. So I leave that up for you.
Yes, okay. That single is called Przedzwiast, and I did that deliberately, the naming, because it's kind of a fun thing to try to make people not from Czech Republic to pronounce the letter F. It's the one song that we did in our native language, because the single that we did 2 years ago was quite successful. Of course, especially in the Czech Republic, but also abroad. So it's the one song that we repeated this, and it is a song that represents more like this kind of maybe doom-inspired, more progressive side of the album. It's slower. It's got a lot of different things going on in there. So we decided to release that as the first single, basically, before we kind of released something that is more straightforward.
Yeah, makes sense. If you look at the Distress Call from the Other World, that surprised me, actually, with the strings. I really like that in there. How did this whole song come to you?
Yeah, that song is actually interesting. It's a little bit different from the rest of the album in the way that it came to be. It's pretty much your standard symphonic black metal song musically, but lyrically, I've written the lyrics for that one, and at the time I read a great sci-fi series, The Three-Body Problem, which is quite popular now. I think that it got a series on Netflix or something like that. And I really liked the concept of kind of this, they call it the dark forest, which is basically that the presumption that if there are aliens, they would probably not be friendly. And it's kind of a sci-fi, but really kind of a metaphor, you could say. And it really resonated with me, so I've decided to kind of try to put that idea in the music. So this song is basically about something like that. My lyrics are never like concrete. It's more about the ideas behind it. But there was this book series was basically the inspiration for writing this song.
All right, interesting. Shards of the Outer Dimension, I thought it starts so calm, and then you have a bit more haunting vocals in there. Can you tell me a little bit about that one?
You are choosing my favorite songs from that album. That one is my favorite. That one basically I made a little bit for myself at first. The other guys didn't like it very much, but at the first stages of the song. But it came around in the end. But it's my favorite song. It's also probably the most complex song of the album. It's really long. It has a lot of musical stuff going on in there. And thematically, it's basically your standard Lovecraftian horror short story. Almost every band has one of those. Lovecraft is the gift that keeps on giving. A lot of metal bands are inspired by that, so I wanted to do one as well. So that's basically the theme of the song. But also, I kind of went wild with the music there. there's a lot of piano because originally I am a pianist, so I kind of made a room there for myself with the piano in the beginning, and also the bridge. There's a lot of strings or a lot of orchestra stuff. I worked with the classical musicians that did the strings for us on that. So it's really this. It's also the song that probably I spend the most time on working on, and it's one of the first that we started putting together, and it's one of the last that got finished. So it's got like the longest history probably from that album.
It's interesting. When I was listening to that one, I was thinking it would be really interesting for a song like this to have like a female vocalist in there. Would you consider something like that?
Yeah, definitely. On this album, we already worked with other people, with a lot of people, and it was kind of time constrained because we wanted something to release and not stay silent for a longer time. But it's definitely something that we are thinking of. We previously in with our previous band, because we have kind of longer history in a previous band that we split from, three of us. We already did work with a female vocalist with great clean vocals, and it's definitely something that we'd like to explore probably in the future, but it didn't come to be on this album.
Yeah. Okay. If you look at Afterlife Dystopia, I think you have a bit of everything that I heard before on the album, as a sort of summarize, maybe. How do you look at that track?
Well, that's kind of our modern track, you could say, because after the last album, we kind of struggled a little bit with the direction, where to go, if we should embrace kind of this more modern metal, which is something that is undeniably popular in the later years, or if we should just stick to the basics and stick to the more Scandinavian sounding black metal and stuff like that. And this one came to be at the time we really talked about this and struggled with this. And that's why there are a lot of kind of modern metal riffs there. But in the end, it kind of got pulled back to kind of sit better with the other songs on that album. So it kind of has these two identities because of that.
All right. If you look at the album as a whole, is there any of the songs that turned out much different than from you initial idea for the song?
Yeah, definitely. Probably this one, probably the most,
Okay.
because originally it was a lot more modern with kind of probably you could say metalcore influences and stuff like that. And in the end, that didn't really. There are signs of it, but it went in very different direction. Also, the song "New Faith" is probably the oldest song, and it was at the time we also experimented with like industrial parts and stuff like that. And we did one of the singles was really in that direction, and this song was kind of gonna be a continuation of that, but in the end we felt it doesn't really fit the theme of the album, so we changed it, molded it a little bit, and basically made it a more the song that it is now to fit more within the album. So that really changed a lot. Also, the lyrics changed quite a bit in that song, and those are probably the two that changed the most. Those are also the two of the oldest, along with the Shards. One we talked about earlier. As with the others, I think that by that time we kind of started to really get into it and started to really focus on making this album. So most of the other songs came together rather quickly and stayed basically the same or very similar to their first versions.
Okay. If you look at the album and look at what people that know you from Dethroned, for example, are hearing, where do you think they're most surprised about?
Well, definitely the sound. That is the thing that is, I think, very apparent on the first listen, that it is very different, because the sound was. I don't want to say that the sound was bad. It was great production, I think, at the time, but it's really a different beast in terms of the sound. This one is much more raw, much more, you could say, probably intimate or something like that. It's more close, like you are in the room with the musicians. So that's probably the first thing that really catches your ear if you listen to those two one after the other. I think also the overall style, the overall genre, when we started on Dethroned, or when we did Dethroned, we were kind of doing more like a death metal thing, which of course black metal influences and a lot of symphonic stuff and stuff like that. And this album is more leaning into the black metal, maybe more Scandinavian influenced stuff, which is something that I'm quite happy with, because Scandinavian, like Norwegian and Swedish metal bands are what I grew up on. So it's kind of returned back to where I personally like to be when I'm the most comfortable. So that's probably the change as well. But I do think that it's still kind of kept the identity of the band. That it's not like it's an evolution, not a revolution, if you can say it that way. So I think that those two things probably, but it's not that different. So if the listener likes Dethroned, I think that they will like this one even more.
All right. And how will you translate it to like live shows?
Well, we started doing live shows more extensively now. We had a pretty different look previously on Dethroned. We kind of changed that a lot in the past year. And we are now doing a mix of both of those albums live. And we have invested quite a bit into costumes and stuff like that, and also equipment. So I think that now the live shows are quite coherent, and we stepped up the production of the live shows quite a bit. But basically, the base things are still the same. Right. Live, we try to make it a good show, basically good theater, you could say. Not just go there and play the stuff we have learned, but make it something a little bit more than just the music. Make it about the visuals as well. So that is something that we are working on hard right now, because we are now preparing to support this new album. We already did a bunch of gigs, some festivals, but we are preparing to really try to get as many gigs as we can in the next year. So we are now currently really working hard on our live show to get as interesting as possible experience for the listeners when they come to see us.
All right. You mentioned already a little bit about the visual side. I noticed you did a video for like 1 month ago released, I think. Mm-hmm. Are you going to do more of that, or you?
Yeah, definitely. We are planning to do some more. There are some time constraints with the end of the year now, so we postponed that a little bit. But we are definitely going to do at least one more music video in the next year for one of the songs. It's probably going to be for the first single, which came out basically without any video material, just with a static image. So we probably would like to do a music video for that one, and also we'd like to do some lyric videos to support certain songs that we feel deserve more attention. So we want to do some supporting stuff for those as well. And after that, we'll see. Maybe there'll be more we'll see how the next one does.
All right, but sounds like you have a good plan for the upcoming year already. What else is new?
Well, we want to try to get a little bit more outside of our country, because last year all the gigs we did were in Czech Republic. So we are currently trying to get find some venues and do some stuff outside of our own country, which is something that we did in the past, and we really loved it. And I think this scene is getting there. After COVID, it was difficult to do live shows because people kind of didn't really. A lot of people didn't really come to the shows, and I think that this is getting better again. It's getting slowly restoring to the pre-pandemic kind of state of things. So gigging is starting to really be fun again. So we like to go outside our country. That is like our main focus with our live shows. And well, that's probably it. Basically, we are now focused on promoting this album. We are not currently working hard on new material because we want to take a step back and focus on the promotion of this album and gigging and doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
Because it's also part of it. That's also the fun part of making music. And we were really long. We spent really long on making this album and being kind of by ourselves. So now we want to focus on getting out there and meeting as many fans as possible. And as I said, getting maybe to a broader Europe.
That sounds like a plan. All right, last question that I ask basically everyone in the Christmas series that we're doing now. Do you have a Christmas wish or some wisdom that you want to share with the world?
Well, Christmas wish. Well, I don't really have one of those, probably. I have two kids, so basically my Christmas is more about granting their wishes than having my own. But what I'd like to say is probably for everybody who likes to listen to music, likes to listen to underground bands, go to the live shows, visit the live shows, buy merch from those bands, buy their music, because that is what keeps us, and I mean not only us, but everybody who works on music. This is what keeps us going. Basically, it's of course we like it. It's our hobby. Basically, it's great to make music, but people who go to the gigs and who buy the merch and support those bands are basically the reason that we do this. And we are very happy that the situation is getting better, that people are again going out there and spending their time with the bands, and I'd like that to continue. So that's probably the main thing that I'd like to say.
All right, that were some really nice words and very true, I think. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hopefully, we get to see you on the road somewhere.
Hopefully.
All right.
All
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
Yes, have a good evening, and yeah, we'll stay in touch for when it comes out.
Great.
All right. Goodbye.
Thanks a lot. It was very nice meeting you, and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.